Welcome to Blake Sloan Real Estate Show. Brand new, exciting show. I apologize out of the studio last week. I was actually out of town. I was in Hollywood at Steven Tyler's Grammy watch party. Super awesome there. Big shout out to my buddy Mike for inviting me. But one thing that's important, we met some awesome people, one of which is going to be a guest on our show. She's a very big conservative commentator. We'll talk about that here in a little bit, but very awesome stuff. They're really going to bring some great stuff to the show here as well. Some big news this week in terms of brand new market numbers out. We have the brand new market numbers out. And interesting, we have a double-digit decline in terms of sales here on the Grand Strand, which also goes into some big-time news we've seen here with interest rates, huge news with interest rates. Last week, we had the highest numbers we've seen since 2011. So obviously, you can see one may cause the other. We'll talk about that and what that means for potential home sellers or home buyers out there overall, because we obviously saw that little bit of decline. Also, this is interesting too. A new report came out. National Home Buyer Sentiment Report came out. It was the lowest on record. So that has to do obviously with low inventory, people having challenges and frustration, also interest rates going up. And so we'll talk about what that means if I'm a home seller thinking about, hey, what do I do this spring market? What do I do this summer market? And what do I do if I'm an actual home buyer in terms of that? And so the good news is it's still a big time seller's market. We'll talk about that data, what's going on. We had a couple things on last week's show we didn't really get time for in terms of how to make sure you can protect yourself in terms of once you go under contract. All these buyers tend to ask for repairs. We had an example where the buyer asked for $60,000 off in terms of repairs. We were able to find an actual quote where it was more like less than $5,000. And that's where details matter. Having the right representation can really help you out. We also have some amazing success stories. Our team's been absolutely crushing it, knocked it out of the park first quarter. And we'll talk about what to look forward to when you're going to this spring to summer market, because you have lots and lots of people coming in town right now. We'll talk about that on today's show. Yes, and just doing the show for over 10 years now, I really made a promise that, look, we'll talk about this every single week, because no matter what, people that listen to this show every single week, and they make the same mistakes over and over and over. One of our success stories today actually made the mistake of going with a friend first, and then they couldn't get it done, and thankfully they came back to us. But here's the deal. People make this huge mistake of thinking that all real estate agents same, and it could not be any further from the truth. It's just like any doctor, any lawyer. If you're charged with a crime you did not commit, the last thing you want is a part-time attorney who's only tried a few cases, right? You want the absolute best, most aggressive, who specializes in that type of law to represent you so you can get the favorable outcome for yourself. And for some reason, people don't tend to demand that same level of excellence when they're dealing with their largest asset. They just think that all the agents are the same, they operate the same, and it could not be further from the truth. And so the reality is, the single most important variable that determines your failure or success as a home seller comes down to one thing only. And that thing is the agent that you choose, period. Not the wall colors, not the grass quality. It comes down to the agent you have, and specifically how they execute from A to Z. Because when you sell a property, there's 118 different variables from A to Z. If each one of those is handled correctly, meaning they're executed with precision, the right way, the right time, in the right order, that puts more money in your pocket, property gets sold. If anything's handled incorrectly, aka they drop the ball at any point. That could be anything from price strategy, the quality of photos, the actual order of the photos. Does the agent answer the phone when buyers call them? If they get a web inquiry, how long does it take them to respond to that web inquiry online? There's all these variables that come up. And what you find is you have most people are just single agents out there trying to juggle all these balls. In this scenario, 118 different balls at the same time. And obviously, it's literally impossible for one single person to do that. And so what most agents do is the 3 Ps. Number one, they promise the world to get the listing, meaning they tell you anything and everything they think you want to hear to get you to list with them. And it works a lot of times. The second thing they do is they put it to MLS, meaning they get some photos on their cell phone usually, put it into the MLS, which is the multiple listing service. And that's where all other realtors can look and find things for their buyers. And they obviously syndicate to sites out there like realtor.com and things like that. And three, what they do is they just pray that someone else brings a buyer. Meanwhile, they get half the commission. They're down the street trying to get the next listing because they're trying to survive. And the reality is, in our marketplace here, the average agent sells 4.3 homes per year, which is not very much. It's one a quarter. And in reality, there's not a whole lot of money to eat with, much less spend in marketing, get you the right exposure that you need. And so when it comes down to that, you got to make sure you want to have somebody who can manage those variables. And one thing I noticed when I got in the business, that there's got to be a better way. I saw so many horror stories, some people that were upset with their previous scenario, the previous agent. And so we sat out and designed a system that's proven repeatable, that creates maximum leverage at every single point. That system is called the Guaranteed Sold System. It's the only proven system that sells twice as fast and for up to 20% more money than traditional methods, and it works very, very, very well. On the flip side, guess what? It's very, very difficult right now because there's very low inventory, lots of competition, and so you want to make sure you have an agent who understands the process and is able to navigate you from A to Z successfully and manage those variables. Because on the buy side, there's 100 plus variables that are usually the opposite of the seller ones. And so we set out and create the same thing, a system that gives our client a competitive advantage in the marketplace. And it's called, in that scenario, the unfair advantage home buying system. Gives you priority access to foreclosures, distress sales, desperate sellers, the absolute best negotiation and purchase price, as well as everything that gets you to the closing table successfully, like home inspection and things like that. But like I mentioned, both those do one single thing, and that's to give you a competitive advantage in the marketplace. And here's the deal. The market's so hot right now, every little mistake costs tens of thousands of dollars. I literally watch it every week. People cost themselves $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 by using an inexperienced agent who doesn't do the right strategy. They don't respond the right way. I mentioned, I think maybe in last week's show, we had a very, very high end, over $2 million home. Listing came out. We had an offer in within an hour. They went ahead and accepted the first offer. They would have done it right way. Wait a little bit longer and get multiple offers on it. Could have added 50, 60, 70,000 more dollars. And ideally, what happened was they just didn't understand the process because they weren't used to handling that type of business that type of way. And so if you know anybody out there thinking about selling, do not allow them to make those types of mistakes. And you'll hear today's success story. Someone went with a friend, was an agent who just part-time. They listed it, had zero action, and thankfully they didn't sell it for less. They were able to, once it expired, come back to us. We drove up we upped the price, got multiple offers, drove the price up, put much more money in the pocket. We'll talk about that today in the success stories here in a few seconds. On fire. We're seeing record numbers in terms of prices that sellers are getting. It's almost unbelievable. We're seeing hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars coming in the Northeast. They're just coming, bidding up properties and getting sellers more money than they ever thought possible. Got it. Now, how will that get them more money? That's going to help get home sellers more money because there's more buyers here than we've ever seen before. But we're not sure how long that's going to last. We are seeing that start to level off a little bit. Some of that interest has started to slow down. So sellers definitely need to take advantage of the super hot market right now before there's any type of shift. All right, as always, thanks for the insight. Call Blake Sloan today at 808-SOLD. That's 808-SOLD. Or online at blakesloan.com. That's blakesloan.com.
Hi, I'm Barbara Corbett. I'm excited to connect with Blake Sloan, the only real estate agent in Myrtle Beach that I recommend. You offer several options for home sellers, which really takes away the stress.
That's right. Sellers at conscious. Even if they can sell it on a certain date, they can ask for help or even rent.
That's great. And if the seller has a bit more time,
use our proven marketing plan and sell for the highest price.
work with my friend Blake Sloan and get the home sold on your terms.
Welcome back to Blake Sloan Real Estate Show. Got the brand new market numbers in. They're very, very interesting, to say the least. We'll look at two different types. So we have two types. The one is what we call, the rear view mirror numbers, which is what closed last month. That's everything that really is closing. But you got to remember, they were under contract for about 30 to 60 days. So it doesn't necessarily tell you real-time action and what's happening. I can tell you my seller team, we really noticed a slowdown a little bit in showings and some multiple offers, just as rates have jumped up so much. But we're still seeing a lot going to contract, which is good. We'll talk about that in terms of the real-time data. But looking at overall numbers, last month's numbers, so you're looking, obviously, we're April, that's overall March. We look at March of this year versus March of last year. The overall closed sales for single family homes down 12.2%. So pretty significant. They're talking about double digit numbers, and they're looking year versus year. So, for example, March of last year, there were 777 single family homes. March of this year, only 682. And so significant drop there. And obviously, you'll usually see that bounce around a little bit based on the overall month of numbers, but it is something to watch out for. One thing driving that also is inventory, but we'll talk about that as well, because there's just less inventory there was last year. The good news, though, is prices are still climbing like crazy. That has to do with such low inventory as keeping that really up and away. So that's good news for home sellers right now. The median price for single family homes in the Grand Strand is up 26.3% from the same time last year. So right now, the median price, 359,900, which is awesome. You look at last year in March, it was 285 even. So significant jump there overall in equity for a lot of homeowners here on the Grand Strand. Also, average sale price up, new record we have here, up 28.2%, 462,594. So almost $500,000 right now for average sale price here on the Grand Strand, which is unheard of. I remember I'd always get made fun of at the conferences from my friends that we'd always be such a low average sale price compared to California, Florida, all these areas. If you look back in January 2019, the overall average sale price here was 254,211. Right now, we're looking at 462,594, almost double from what it was in 2018, which is crazy to really understand here on the Grand Strand. Now, one thing that's really protecting that has to do with inventory. Inventory is down to a record low number. Right now, it's at 1.0 months inventory. Anything less than 6 months is a seller's market, meaning the seller has the advantage. And so right now it's down 23.1% from the same time last year. And again, back if you look at January 2019, there was 5.2 months of inventory. And so it's all the way down right now at 1.0 months. And that's just something to watch and see what's happening overall in terms of that. Same thing with homes for sale. The actual amount of homes for sale right now is down 26.3%. One thing looking at last month in terms of showings per listing was up 5.1% from the same month last year. And so it's still getting traffic. The average listing is getting 8.2 showings per listing. So that's great news there overall. And the one thing to watch is we always know it's always supply and demand driven. So the lagging indicator always is price. We have seen a little bit of slowdown here in sales, but thankfully, what's holding the price high and keeping it going up is just low inventory in terms of what we're seeing. So that's for the overall single family homes. If you look at condos have been super hot lately as well. They're down a little bit, just not that much. They're down 3.5% right now. So if you look at last year, there was 811 condo sales in the month of March. This year, 783. And so almost flat, but a little bit less. And again, that also has to do with inventory. If you look at inventory overall, in terms of supply, is down 70.0%. So 70% less condos for sale right now than there were the same time last year. Right now, we're at 0.6 months of inventory, a new record low. It's really kind of hovering on, and there's just not hardly anything out there for sale. Now, that's also protecting price, a new record price for average sale price, new record here in the median sale price. Median sales price from last year is up 36.0%, which is awesome. 211,500. Which is great news. Again, going back to January 2019, it was 130,000. Right now it's 211, which is awesome news for any condo owners that bought anywhere around that time. Also, average price for condos up 33.1% in the last 12 months, up to 254, 224, which is awesome overall. And the one thing you're looking at is showings per listing. It's up 15.3% from last year. And that has to do with just being so many less condos, right? Because you do showings per listing, you're down 70% in the amount of condos. Obviously, the amount per listing of showings is going to go up. And so very interesting numbers, to say the least. One thing that's really important to look at, though, is the overall real-time numbers. We track every single day, literally in my office. We cover it every morning in the huddle we have with our team at 9 a.m. We cover how many properties went under contract the last 7 days, look at the overall volume in them. And the last 7 days, 728 properties went under contract, which is huge. Those are big time numbers. And so we haven't seen that much of a slowdown yet in terms of new properties going under contract. It also is the spring market, though. And so we've had so many people come in town for spring break already. We had so many buyers up north who've been stalking properties for 3, 6, 9 months and are really coming in town to buy. A lot of people still buying virtually. And so in the last 7 days, $267,599,475 went under contract to sell. And here's the interesting thing. My whole team's been talking about this. We've getting so many high-end buyers from out of the area that everyone's really getting. If you look at right now, in the last 7 days, 5 properties over $3 million under contract, the highest here in Surfside on the ocean. Residential home, 3.79999, 3.79 million overall. Another in Calabash, 3.7 million. Soxy Boulevard, 3.5 million. And if you look at anything over 2 million, there's 8 properties over 2 million under contract in the last 7 days. So big time numbers there as well. And the good news is we're seeing inventory kind of lighten up a little bit. We've been averaging around 330 properties on the market in any given time, which is in Horry County. So if you look at Horry County only, just because it's really easier to kind of measure that one main county here, there's been 330 on average daily of single family homes for sale. Right now, we're at 370 homes for sale as of today, right this second. So that's good news out there for buyers. A little more inventory coming in. Home sellers, you're going to watch out and see what's happening. As we have seen rates jump up significantly, we'll talk about that in a second. That's one thing that if you look at last week, we hit a high since 2011. It jumped up to 5.08%. Look at last week's show, which was actually 2 weeks ago, 4.71%. And then as of today, right now, it's 4.97% for a 30-year fix. And so it jumped up big time, hit a new record, which also kind of hinders some buyers because what it does is it prices some of these buyers out of the market, or it makes their debt to income ratio off. And so it does limit the amount of people who can buy your home, especially if you're in the mid to high end price range. That's something we're seeing a lot right now. Right now, a 15-year fix is 4.24%. Overall, a 30-year FHA loan right now is 4.62%. A 30-year jumbo loan right now is 4.30%. And a 5-year ARM, adjustable rate mortgage, is 4.05%. So still not that bad looking at, the overall long-term numbers, but it is a significant jump here based on what we've seen overall in last month. And we'll talk about that here towards the end. We talk about the buyer sentiment report, which just talks about a lot of buyers being frustrated about low inventory, high prices. And now you add on top of that interest rates that are jumping up. It really is kind of giving some, I guess, they're deflating some of their things. We'll talk about that. I totally agree with that. We'll talk about that here after this next quick break. We'll come back also with our brand new hot bar alert. We got 10 minutes about. 10 minutes, you think, about time? All right.
That's a pretty good guess. Probably about 9 to 10 minutes.
Okay, cool. That was our guessing. Thank you.
Against what Blake Sloan can offer you. So when you're looking to sell and buy, he is your guy. Read nearly 750 five-star reviews by Newland's Sloan Realty Group. Give Blake a call today and start packing. That's Sloan Realty Group. And tune into Blake's show Saturdays at 9 a.m. and Sundays at 11:30 a.m.
Welcome back to Blake Sloan Real Estate Show. I have the hot bars alert. My team and I are working with a ridiculous amount of home buyers. We're looking for homes in the Myrtle Beach, Grand Strand area from $250,000 up to $4.1 million right now. If you're thinking about selling, call us 843-808-SOLD. That's 843-808-SOLD. One thing we've been doing on the show for 10 plus years is we talk about this thing, proof versus promises, right? A lot of agents tell you all the things they're going to do. I'm going to do this. I'm going to put a sign in. And they wait till they get to listing, then they actually start trying to do some marketing, right? Which is talking to people or whatever they do. Most agents don't spend a whole lot of money because they sell on average 4 homes a year. There's not a whole lot of money to spend in marketing, right? So the main difference that we have is my business model. And our business model allows us to outspend the average agent 100 to 1 from a marketing standpoint because of how the model's set up. And so we're spending tens and tens and tens of thousands of dollars a month every month before you ever even think about calling us, which guess what it does? It gives you a huge advantage because we have this thing called buyers in waiting. And so one thing we've been doing for a long time, I'd like to read out how many active real buyers we have every single week. And right now, the active buyer count is 67,288 active buyers. Again, 67,288 active buyers. Those are people who are literally on our site with a username, password account, who are searching actively. And like right now, we can watch them literally on the site I'll go over. We have Joe Smith. He's from Brooklyn, New York. Let's see what else we got here. I'm just pulling it right back up to refresh it. I got Sean Huskins from Myrtle Beach. I got Samantha from Indian Shore, North Carolina. Aaron from Mount Pleasant, South Carolina. I got Angelo from Hudson Falls, New York. Mary Lou, I can't say her last name, from Hillsburg, California. I got Stacy from Rutherford, New Jersey. And I got Brendan from Putnam Valley, New York. So just all over, we have national, international buyers. And so, like I mentioned, the huge advantage here is that we're able to match up these buyers that we already have to your property quickly, and we're able to get that sold for the most amount of money because we have a technology we help design that allows us to take any new listing. Obviously, we take yours, which would be our listing, and we use that technology. And what it does is it reverse engineers that 67,288 buyers, and it finds the most likely buyer for your property based on their previous search patterns. And so while most agents are still trying to figure out Microsoft Outlook, we have high-level technology that allows us to go in and reverse engineer and score these buyers an actual percentage match, and then reach out on the telephone and say, hey, like this person, hey, Ronald, we got a brand new listing. It matches what you're looking for in XYZ neighborhood. Do you want to take a look at it? Now, guess what? Ronald knows who we are because he's been on our site in this scenario for 3 months. And so he's looking for that. Guess what we're able to do? Boom, we're able to sell that within minutes or even obviously days. And the cool part about it is most times we have multiple buyers who are looking for the same type property, and we're able to use that to your advantage and obviously help get more buyers in there, which ultimately can drive up the price. So if you want to know more about that, reach out, call us 843-808-SOLD. That's why we can share those numbers every week, because we sit down with our sellers and show them in real time, and it blows their mind because you can literally watch them search online, watch where they're at, what they're doing, and look at the actual properties. And so that's one really cool thing that also leads to these amazing success stories. One thing I want to share here, just a couple from last week. Ray recently, this is the one I was talking about earlier. Ray recently tried to sell his home in Long to a different agent. His friend had no success, right? Didn't receive one single offer. Thankfully, Ray's been listening to our show here on the radio for years and decided to give us a call. We came in, met with Ray, identified what was wrong with the prior agent, and it was marketing. We designed a custom plan around his home, raised the price. I said again, we raised the price, launched our global marketing blitz, professional photos, virtual reality tour. Within a couple of days, drove in massive traffic, received a full price offer for more than what Ray was listed at with his previous agent. So we came in, looked at what was wrong, the marketing piece, raised the price up, launched our global marketing blitz, drove massive traffic, able to get it under contract, negotiate $20,000 appraisal deficiency, meaning that if the appraisal came in up to $20,000 short, the buyer would pay for that to allow Ray to sell it for more than it's worth based on appraisal, which is awesome, right? To allow him to retain every single dollar in his pocket. Now Ray no longer has to worry about paying rent, for paying for two homes while he's having a new home. So the reality is, make sure that you don't make that same mistake. The only thing I wish different is Ray would have called us first, because we were able to get him more money a lot sooner. One more, Bill recently decided they wanted to move to a different area within Horry County and had purchased a home in Conway. Bill's major concern, though, was paying for two mortgages at the same time. Bill was able to do it for a short time, but did not want for it to go on too long where things would get tight. Bill's also concerned that his current home is in Aner, right? It may take longer to sell. Thankfully, Bill saw one of our billboards in the guaranteed sale program, wanted to have assurance that his home would actually sell by a certain period. We came in, Bill showed him exactly how we already have hundreds of buyers looking for a home exactly like his, just like I was talking a minute ago. Designed a custom plan, launched our global marketing blitz, professional photos, the virtual reality walkthrough. Within 2 days, we drove massive traffic, creating a frenzy. We brought Bill 5 offers, driving his price up. Bill accepted an offer for $10,000 over asking price. Now he doesn't have to worry about paying two mortgages, move on, putting maximum equity in his pocket. And so don't make that mistake, right? Reach out, call us 843-808-SOLD. Anyone that you know, friend, relative, aunt, uncle, if you like them, you don't like them, they mention or smell like real estate, say, look, you got to call my buddy Blake, 843-808-SOLD, and just save us in your phone. Go ahead and save me as Blake Sloan, sold in there if you like to. Like I mentioned earlier, one thing too, another success story we had is we had a deal come through, listing side. They wanted massive repairs based on the home inspection. Now, if you don't understand home inspection, they look very scary. Sometimes they come back 40, 60 pages. They list every possible thing wrong. In this case, there was a novice agent on the other side, and they wanted $60,000 off the price because of these items on the home inspection. Now, the reality is the buyer believed that because the agent let them to believe that. They didn't really understand the cost of what the reality was. So we're able to come in, have a contractor do all of those things, and it came down to the price was $5,000. And so that just goes to show you in that scenario, we're able to save our seller $55,000 by knowing the reality of how these things work, what the cost is, and what he or she's obligated to actually fix based on that scenario. And so what you find is an emotional purchase like this, people tend to exaggerate and get a lot more scared about things that aren't that big a deal. And so if you have a professional come in who is also part of our team, right? Our network, we're aligned with the best lenders, best contractors, best anything that we're able to share with our clients, and allows us to make sure we get much better results for them in that scenario, which is super, super helpful. So that's one thing that's important there. One thing I was talking about really quick had to do with that buyer sentiment, because it comes down to really kind of what a lot of buyers are thinking right now. This came down to the Fannie Mae. It's a survey they do, and it talks about consumer pessimism right now. It says Fannie Mae consumer pessimism toward mortgage rates reach record high, but it also talks about their overall thoughts on the interest rates. But it talks about how their overall consumers, right? I'm just scanning it really quick so don't waste your time in this scenario. In March, the survey says 69% of respondents indicated they expect mortgage rates to continue to rise, and the good time to buy component set a new survey low, with 73% of respondents reporting it's a bad time to buy a home. So the other part of that talks about the good time to buy component reached yet another all-time record low, with home prices rising, mortgage rates rising, and the economic uncertainty being the consumer's chief concerns. Only 24% of consumers believe it's a good time to buy. Now, I believe it's a great time to buy if you don't own. But what that means is if I'm a home seller, I might be hearing a little bit of rumbles that it may be a good idea to take some chips off the table. I don't foresee it being a crash in that scenario based on the housing market. There's no telling what could go on with our government. But the reality is you may want to think about taking advantage of this spring and summer market while rates are very, very, very low. And so that's something we're very, very excited about, to make sure we can help you in this summer market, because there's lots of people still coming in town. Like I mentioned, we saw 780 plus homes under contract last 7 days. And so we had a record first quarter. Let's help you have a record second quarter. If you want to know anything about your home or value or anything, reach out, call us in that scenario, 843-808. So anytime left at all? Awesome. We'll see you guys here next week in next week's show. We'll talk about who that special guest is going to be. Hey, Myrtle, scared of the box. Lead singer,